Hey folks, Todd Hagopian actually right on time this week at 4 a.m. Doing a live stream to talk about the Inside Circle, which is your inside look into launching a book. And you're going to come with me as we launch 3 books over the next year and learn different parts of that process. Hopefully, you guys will see the good, the bad, the ugly. And so, if you ever want to launch a book, you will know what you're getting yourself into. Maybe you'll learn from my mistakes. Maybe you'll take some things that I'm doing right, put them into your launch, or do something a little bit differently and improve on it. I hope that all comes true for you. And by the way, just reach out to me if you have questions or comments or things you want me to cover, because this is all a lot of fun. But today, before we get deeper into the actual launch, we're going to talk a little bit about building of the brand and why that's important. So, branding is important in all kinds of business. We all know that. But the author brand is something interesting that not a lot of people completely get. Um, the reason this is important is because you have to decide who you're going to be to your audience and make sure that people realize that and make sure people can recognize that. And so a lot of people are like, oh, the Stagnation Assassin, what's that all about? We'll get to that in a minute. But the point is it's an author brand, not selling consulting and all that stuff. It's more about trying to, because I'm not doing any of that stuff. It's about trying to brand yourself so that people recognize what you are, how you're going to talk to them, and how you're going to solve their problems as an author. And so, how this whole thing started is I started with Book Launchers, which is kind of a self publishing deal. And they helped me start to write the book and understand who I was talking to and things like that. That worked okay. But where the branding really took off is when I started working with a company called Brand Builders Group. Rory Vaden, he's a great guy if you want to look him up. And he always talks about how you have to pick an avatar. And this is a common language among brand builders. You pick an avatar, and this is who you're going to be talking to. And then you have to choose how you're going to talk to that avatar and what problem you're going to solve. So he always starts with, who are you talking to? And who should you choose to talk to? And his advice is, you should always be talking to the person who you once were, because that's who you're in the best position to help. And so as I started thinking about who am I actually writing this book for, it's a business transformation book. So who am I writing this book for? It's not for CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. I've never been a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. I've been a president of a business unit of a Fortune 500 company and whatnot. But really who this book is for are people who are struggling to transform a business, or who are stuck, who are stagnating, who can't figure out why they're not getting promoted, even though they are working really hard and trying new things and implementing, and just can't seem to get over that hump of business transformation, which is a acquired skill that you have to get good at. And there's not a whole lot of people out there who are truly good at taking a business and transforming it. And so that's who I decided I wanted to talk to. This can be directors who are future GMs. This can be a GM who fell into a situation where suddenly they need to turn around and they've never done that before. These are the people that I'm talking to. So what is the problem that I'm trying to solve for that person? That was the next question. And the problem kept coming back to stagnation. And how we zeroed in on that was trying to figure out what these people usually fall into, right? So their best talent's leaving, and they haven't innovated in 5 years, and they're choosing to protect the sacred cows instead of take a risk and try something new. They don't want to break broken promises. We've always done it this way syndrome, and all these things kept coming up. And so I decided, there's this huge area of growth consulting and growth books, right, for people who are really growing fast. Then there's this huge area for crisis consulting and crisis books, where it's like you're basically about to die and you're on life support and you have to change things right that second. But there's this huge muddy middle, probably 70 to 80% of companies who are not in either of those scenarios. They're not growing at 20%, and they're not about to die. They're in this, what I call stagnation phase, where they're slowly dying. And they're not headed up towards growth, but they're slowly headed down towards crisis, some faster than others. Um, And these are the folks that I decided I wanted to talk to. One, it's a very large market. Two, it's a market that if you don't wait until your company is losing 5 million, it is much easier to fix, right? It's much easier to fix a company who's still making a couple $1,000,000 a year than it is to fix a company that's already fallen all the way off and is now losing 5 million a year and facing layoffs and all this stuff. So I thought that would be a fun avatar to talk to. And the problem is pretty easy, or not easy, but the problem is pretty obvious. And so, what was the solution to the problem? The solution to the problem really became this mantra of declaring war on stagnation, being proactive about it, going after the different symptoms that hit you in your kind of slow dive from growth down to crisis, and all the things in between that drive you there, that you can turn around in the middle. So that's kind of how it started. And then it was like, how do you want to talk to this audience? And I started doing podcasting. I started doing live streams and talking to the camera and this and that. And what I found is every time I talked, I was basically coming across as angry. I was mad. Like, why aren't you doing this? We need to get this done. You have to be proactive. You have to be aggressive. And I had to make a choice. Am I going to change the way I talk and have a more kind of well accepted view of this, and a more consultant tone and a more like whitewashed, inside the box type of application? Or do I really need to lean into my natural tendency, which is to allow stagnation to actually make me mad, and try to get you to have a little passion about it and try and get you to want to declare war on it and attack this thing as if you're trying to save 100 jobs instead of just going through the motions and reading the 20 books behind me and doing things the same as every other manager. And what I realized is that that doesn't help. Like there's 100 books out there. I could regurgitate them all, and I could write that book 100 times, and you guys wouldn't learn anything. So I decided to lean into it, have my own kind of mantra. Who do I want to be for the next 3 book launches? I wanted to be myself, and myself is, as most people know, if you know me well, it's fairly aggressive and kind of outside the box thinking and in your face, and let's do this now instead of waiting. And so that's the brand that we started to build. And so we we started looking into that. We started looking into, can I actually brand that? What's that look like? The declare war on stagnation really stuck. That was a cool mantra to kind of keep coming back to. And then we came up with, Stagnation Assassin, which I think is really cool. It's just a cool name, and obviously everybody warned me, hey, that's aggressive language. Some people are not going to like that. It's going to be hard to get booked for speeches and this and that. And my employer had said that I could speak, and so is this going to lower your salary or you know lower your ability to get paid to speak and stuff like that? Well, who cares? That's what I ended up coming back to, is like I'd rather talk about the stuff I enjoy talking about to the people I enjoy talking to, and make a little less money than be more broad based and just kind of talk about touchy feely management crap that doesn't work. So that's how the Stagnation Assassin came about. And frankly, we tested it out, and as I started talking to podcasters, started replying to reporters, started to talk about the book, it kept coming back that people were actually really liking that part of it, like the tone, it was different. It was clear there were definitely people who didn't like it, right? But it was clear, like, if this is what you want, this is the guy you want to talk to. This is the book you want to read. This is the advice you want to follow. And so that's what a brand is, right? A brand is going after something very specific and becoming the person or the brand that people want to talk to if that's what they're looking for. And brand doesn't have to be for everybody, right? So that's essentially how we started to build the brand. Then we went into, okay, so most authors publish a book, they kick it out there, sell a couple hundred copies, and then they're done forever. That's not what I wanted. I had a 3-book deal, so I wanted to start investing in things that were going to kind of have a long-term payback over the next year and a half as I launch these 3 books. And so we started doing a ROI analysis on what I should focus on and what I shouldn't, how I can lean into this brand, build the brand, help it kind of catapult across. So the two biggest things that came out of that were website and YouTube. Okay, so both of those build over time. So as you get YouTube videos out there, you might only get 10 views in the first week, but 4 years later, you have thousands of views because they're out there in the internet. It slowly starts to gain momentum as it gets more views. It gets shown more, and it's one of these evergreen kind of contents as long as you make it that way. And whereas like a tweet, you tweet it out, and all of a sudden it's gone. No one can ever find a tweet from a year ago, that kind of thing. So um, so YouTube was going to be a big channel for me, which I'd never done before. I didn't have a channel. It was an interesting experience to get into. And then the website's the same thing. So website, you can put 100 articles on a website, have it be pristine, launch it, and you will get 0 views because basically there's all kinds of SEO things where Google will keep you in the sandbox for 6 months and nobody's coming to see your website even if it's beautiful and you paid $50,000 for it. So yeah, I had to go into SEO and learn all this stuff. But more importantly, it's like, okay, how do I get the website to represent the brand that I'm trying to build so that everyone's having the same experience as they land there? And so we did a lot of work on that and put some money into the website. So if you go to the website, it's going to say, declare war on stagnation. It's going to have the story about me. It's going to have the story about the book. It's going to have, early endorsers, and it'll have podcast appearances and guest appearances, my own podcast and things like that. But then also what we decided is, you know what? I'm not selling anything here except for books and an occasional speech. So I'm just going to put everything out there for free. Originally, it was going to be all gated. I was going to have $100,000 worth of content. You give me your email address, you get the content kind of thing. And that works real well. The problem is you don't get views because anything that you put behind the gate, Google doesn't see. So it doesn't drive people to your website over time. And go back to SEO, those same 100 articles could drive 10,000 visits a month down the road once Google has crawled all the pages, indexed the pages, put them into the search, and you start getting backlinks. And we can go into all that some other time. But those same 100 articles could actually drive a ton of traffic 18 months down the road. You just don't get any right away. And so what I decided is we're playing the long game. So we're going to put hundreds of articles out there. So we worked through, wrote a bunch of articles. I think I'll have about 150 on the corporate site, which is going to be stagnationassassins.com. And then I've got about 60 right now on the personal site. It'll probably get up to about 250 on toddhagopian.com. They both look very similar, but have different things. So the Stagnation Assassins is much more clinical about the frameworks. toddhagopian.com is more about comparisons and lists and checklists and, top 10 of and 7 laws of and that kind of thing is going to be the toddhagopian.com. So 2 different brands for the same thing. So stagnationassassins.com is the corporate brand that owns the books and the speaking. toddhagopian.com is more of me talking about the books and the concepts and making more of kind of conversational type articles, which is a lot of fun to have those 2. So that's kind of how the brand came together. And then if you look at my book now, the cover says right on it, Stagnation Assassins, the Todd Hagopian, the Stagnation Assassin. Podcasts are using it in their titles. Reporters are using it when they quote stuff that I do. And it's working. And quite frankly, it's one of the things I get asked about the most, which is telling you that the brand is working. And that's why it's important to have an author brand. Otherwise, I'd be Todd Hagopian, the bipolar business author, which is fine. I thought about just going in with that. You'll get enough attention and it gets people to ask about the story. But with the brand plus that, you just get an added level of exposure. And so that's how you build an author brand. It's all about who you want to serve, what problem you want to fix, how you want to fix it, and then how you want to talk about it. And it's important to ignore the people that say you should be everything to everybody. That works if you're a big time author. It works if you got a huge publishing budget behind you. But if you're just trying to get your stuff out there, you really need to think about, how do you want to talk about it for the next 10 years? How do you want to talk about it for the next 18 months when you launch your books? Are you going to get sick of sitting there, um, in my case, smiling and talking about the touchy feely stuff and acting like a consultant, even though I'm not, and this and that, where I could just come in and be like, hey, if you brought me in, you know what you're getting. I'm going to talk how I talk, and you're going to like it or you're not, and that's essentially what I decided to do. And it's a lot more comfortable. I don't have to prepare before a podcast. I just talk the way I normally talk. I wrote the books the way I normally talk, and everything kind of flows through in that same brand voice. And I never have to do anything special just to adhere to the brand. So the best brands are the ones that are true. And that's what Stagnation Assassin was. So hope that helps. I would say Brand Builders Group, great company to learn how to build a brand. NG Enterprises, who I just started working with, more to launch the book. But they have a very similar program as Brand Builders Group. Another great company, has a lot of good tools, including AI tools, by the way. So building these brands, right? Content diamond is something you'll hear a lot about. But essentially, now with all these AI tools, it's very easy to take one piece of content and turn it into 10. And you should do that. It's not something you should shy away from. So if I do a podcast and let's say I just talk solo for 10 minutes, okay, I can turn that into a blog post on my website very easily. I can just get the transcript and turn it into a blog post. I can take that same transcript and say, hey, pull out the 5 rules of X. And all of a sudden it turns into a 5 rules of X post that I can put on LinkedIn. Can take the same thing and say, go out and find a transformation that use something like this. Research and find me 3 examples. Finds me 3 examples. I pick one of those. I write an article about that transformation. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use one 10-minute talk. Basically, they just did a YouTube without really having a script, and then turn it into like several different kinds of content. I can post that video. I can take it to an AI tool called Opus, drop it in, and it'll give me 10 short videos out of that have graphics and all this stuff. And so all of a sudden I can post 10 short videos on YouTube and Twitter and TikTok. And all of a sudden that one 10-minute thing with about 20 more minutes of work behind it, so 30 minutes, might end up being 50 different posts across 3 or 4 different networks. And so that's another thing that the branding teams at Brand Builders Group and NGNG will teach you, is that you need to utilize your time to drive more content, not the same content on every channel, but more content in different ways for different audiences. And there's really fast and easy ways to do that now. So anyway, that's branding. There's a couple great resources out there. Both NGNG and Brand Builders will run you about $3,000 a year if you dive in and get their kind of do-it-yourself model. And then they're both significantly more expensive if you buy a coach or if you use the coaching model, which I did not do. I was able to look at all the videos and basically implement what I wanted to and not implement what I didn't, which is good for me because I'm not doing this full time. So I decided to get into podcasting and do the web and avoid the Facebook and Twitter stuff for the most part. So that's essentially how branding works. That's how I got my brand kicked off. It's been a lot of fun. Love to answer questions on this. If people have ideas and they want to understand how to build their brand, or what is a brand and how do I choose, and I'll probably end up saying you should probably talk to Brand Builders Group or NGNG. But I can certainly help you bounce things off, help you learn how to use AI to bounce things off of, and try and get some ideas. But really, it starts with, who are you talking to? What problem are you trying to solve? How do you want to sound when you solve it? And then you step back and say, am I going to enjoy living out this brand for as long as I decide to talk about this book, which could be 10 days or could be 10 years? Am I going to enjoy that? Is it going to be worth my time? Are people going to listen to me? And are those the people that I want to hear from and have hear from me? So that's branding. Thanks, folks. I will put out a newsletter on this in a few hours, but just wanted to talk to you guys on an early Wednesday morning and get in the swing of doing this. And it's going to be fun. Every week you're going to learn something new about book launching. Good, bad, and indifferent. This was mostly good. It was fun to build a brand, and it actually went pretty well. But there's going to be weeks where I tell you about stuff that didn't go well, and you'll probably learn even more in those weeks. So I hope you stick around. Thanks a lot, folks. Appreciate you.